Welcome back to Clarity Convos for Wedding Pros podcast. I'm your host, Aislinn, and today is just going to be amazing. I'm so excited because we are starting a brand new series. And I had this idea for the series probably a few months ago, but it really kind of started to form in the past month or so. And I'm just so excited because today we have Allison Davis, and we are going to be doing a series called Ask the Planner. So Allison, if you can introduce yourself and talk about who you are, all the accolades, what we're doing here together, I want to hear it.
Sure thing. So my name is Allison Davis. My company is called Davis Row, specializing in destination wedding weekend to be specific, because we noticed that our clients were really focusing more on really creating something immersive for their guests. So we figure, why not go all in and make a weekend, a few days out of it. I have been in the events industry for 10 years, wedding specific with Davis Row for 7. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, after probably a little too long in New York. I am just always excited about opportunities to meet new people in the wedding industry, learn more about what people's businesses are like, try new things, go to new places, and I love yapping. That's my favorite thing. So I'm very excited that we're having this series kick off. I think it's going to be a pretty unique platform to ask questions for vendors. I think for B2B in the wedding industry, there isn't a ton of opportunity like this. Some people are shy about asking questions. They think maybe it makes them seem inexperienced. They feel like there's always an audience watching them, potential clients. They don't want anybody to think they don't know 100% exactly what they're doing. I think asking questions is always a good thing because it shows that you're willing to continue learning. And I never claim to know everything, but I'm always happy to speak from my experience, and help people by sharing the things I've learned so that we can all grow together. So I'm super excited about this.
I am so excited about this too. And I just want to toot your horn just a little bit because you didn't even talk about some of the other accolades that you have. So
Yeah.
Allison is a luxury wedding planner. She's also on the WIPA board. She also has run fam trips. She is well known in the industry, and she's just one of those people that it is a joy to know. So that's part of the reason why I wanted to bring her on the podcast is A, I love our conversation so much, but B, I know that you have a wealth of knowledge to share. And so I'm so excited that people get to ask anonymous questions that they want to know from high-end planners what the answers to these questions are. So as you guys are listening to this series, if a question comes up for you, what I want you to do is either DM me or Allison on Instagram and go ahead and send us your questions, and we will add them to the question bank. And as we go through the series, we're going to be answering questions. And I'm so excited.
Thank you for the horn tooting. I am not always great at that, but I always appreciate it from others. Yeah, to echo what you said about the question bank, we are looking at it right now. Always happy to add questions to it. There's no judgment on these questions either, so feel free to DM either of us and we'll put you on. But we won't mention your name because I know not everybody wants to be center stage.
Yeah, these are definitely going to be anonymous questions. They go into a bank and then we pick them every single episode as to which ones we're going to answer. So with that in mind, let's get into it. The very first question that got submitted, I love this question so much. And I think it's going to be a really, really good one for wedding photographers and florists and people who aren't planners to hear. So the question is, what are ways that we as vendors can help you as the planner and the vendor team throughout the planning process, as well as the day of and after the wedding? So what are some ways that other vendors can help wedding planners? Because if we think about it, we are all a team. That was an entire episode that we did together, was co-creation and being teammates. So I think this is a really beautiful kind of continuation of that conversation.
I love this question. So the thing that I think a lot of us tend to lose sight of sometimes, especially when things get really busy in the fall season, right now for a lot of planners, people don't really have a lot of time to write beautiful, well-constructed emails and get on Zoom calls for a kiki every week, every couple days, whatever. So I think it's important for us to put some clarity around this. So I think the number one best thing you can do is be as transparent, as forthcoming with information as you possibly can. Assume nothing. I think that's pretty standard as the number one thing across the event industry as a whole. assume nothing. Assume you're coming into a situation where people know nothing about you and what you do and what your process is like. One thing for planners in particular, coming from other vendors, a lot of wedding planners offer tons of different types of services. There are the tiers everybody knows, like month-end coordination, partial planning, full service planning, but then some planners offer design only. Some planners come in 30 days out. Some planners come in 2 weeks out. And so as a vendor, a good idea is to open the floor to the planner you're talking to and ask them what service the planner is providing. Don't make assumptions about how much information they have or how little information they have if you feel like you're only just hearing from them right before the wedding and the client has never mentioned them before. Ask them what their process is like. For full service planners, a lot of us like to do the communication on behalf of our client and bring them in only when it's absolutely necessary. And it's no shade towards the vendor. It helps us keep the client on track and focused. But it's a question that's worth asking because it can make things very complicated and difficult if you go around the planner to speak directly to the client. Giving timelines for how your process works is really helpful too. If you know that you already have something set up to send out a questionnaire like a month before the wedding, or you want to check in and ask about how the timeline's coming along 6 months before the wedding or 4 months before the wedding. If you already have that laid out, if it's already set to come out of your CRM, let us know, because a lot of times planners can help you get ahead of that kind of thing. I tend to fill out the questionnaires on behalf of my clients because I have more information than they do. And so if the questionnaire goes straight to the client, they don't see your email, you're wondering what's going on. If you reach out to the planner and see a planner as a teammate, we can usually help you get the information that you need that the client may not be paying attention to. So in the planning process, I feel like as upfront, as transparent as you can be, and also as curious about like what the planner is offering the client will really help you a lot. On the day of the wedding, you should come in knowing as much as you possibly can based on the information given to you ahead of time. So as players always say and have a tendency to complain about, please read the timeline. Read the timeline before the day of the wedding. Ask questions before the day of the wedding. We get the same questions all the time, like, where do I park? How much is parking? Can I get here at this time? Where do I put my stuff? Da, 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 da. You know that you have those questions ahead of time. Ask them as early as you can, because if the player doesn't know the answer, that gives us the chance to figure out the answer when we have the time and the bandwidth to figure it out. Whereas if you text me at 11 a.m. the morning of the wedding and ask me where to park, you may not hear from me for a while. And when you do hear from me, I may not have a clear answer, and I may have to divert resources to figure out the answer or to create the answer for you. And that can be really frustrating for planners. We have a lot to shuffle. A lot of people are looking at us as the holders of the information. And so that's why our notes are so specific, because we're trying to make it so you can be as self-sufficient as possible. I think it's a good idea to introduce yourself to the planner when you arrive. Not everybody does that. Introduce yourself to the other vendors when you arrive. Not everybody does that, but that's a great way to network, especially if you aren't the photographer and you're hoping you get to see photos after the fact. Introduce yourself to the photographer, especially early in the day when things aren't like crazy and frantic for some cases. When you first get on site, it's a good time to make yourself known, because you never know where those connections could take you and how they could benefit you in the future. After the wedding, again, it's a good idea to reach out to the planner. It's a good idea to reach out to everybody on the team. Let them know, hey, it was great working with you. Hey, I got these pictures of you during setup. I'll send them to you. But also, again, make your timeline really clear. If you are just reiterating what's in the contract, great. Because after the wedding, I probably am not going to have a lot of time, I guess, to really look at the contract again. I'm going to go in and see the full delivery timeline, but other than that, maybe not that much. I know video is not coming for a while usually. I don't really care about sneak peeks. I know that that's kind of a hot question right now. I don't personally care about sneak peeks. I don't need to see something from the wedding the day after the wedding ends. It's exciting to me, but it's not like a make or break. If I don't see a sneak peek, I'm never recommending this person again. But if you can tell me, hey, we're running a little bit behind right now, so it might take an extra week, or as per the agreement, you sent us back such and such pieces, we really appreciate it, we already received them, whatever the case may be, just to have an additional touch point to kind of close the loop. Super, super, super positive, super helpful. it makes you look really good. It makes you look really organized. And the same way that you set reminders to do outreach to a client, you should be setting reminders to finish up outreach with a planner. Even if you don't specifically say, hey, recommend me to all your clients, if you come through in ways that kind of take things off the planner's plate, make things easier, make it fun to work with you, and like you don't have to, nobody has to chase you for anything. I think that really speaks for itself and make it so that the planner is a lot more likely to recommend you, keep you on their short list, mention you to other planners, which is huge. And so I think the kind of the summary of all of that is be as forthcoming as you possibly can, be kind to the people around you, and that really helps makes us look good so that we can make you look good.
I love that. I love that so much. There were so many things that I was thinking of like as you were speaking. So
Hmm.
one of the things I was thinking about was when I was working with higher end wedding planners, I would start to ask them like the question of like, do you have a specific way that you want me to communicate with you? Are
Love
you
it.
going to be the one filling out the questionnaire or do I need to send it to the client? And I had one
Hmm.
planner who we I basically didn't talk to the client. Like we just like
Hmm.
worked through the planner and she would be the one who would actually be filling stuff out. But I'm not going to make the assumption that that's how every single planner works. I'm going to
Right.
ask every time of like, what's
Hmm.
your process so that I make sure that we're on the same page.
Hmm.
One of the other things, I don't know if you've heard of this, Fathom AI. Have you heard of that before?
I have not.
Okay, so Fathom AI will take your Zoom calls and it's AI, so it will do, Claude, Chat GPT, whatever.
Hmm.
So it takes your Zoom calls and it turns it into notes. So say you have a client
Nice.
call,
I love
say
stuff
you
like
have a
that.
client call and you're like, "Oh, it's a timeline call." And we changed the ceremony from 3 o'clock to 3:30. Fathom AI will take that in the notes and then it'll send you and the client the notes after the Zoom call. So that was
I
something I
love
was thinking
it.
about, when you're talking about oh, just be really clear, send your timelines. I was like, oh, she would love this.
Yeah, yes. I've used Otter AI before, which is similar. And I actually saw something on LinkedIn recently. I love LinkedIn, by the way. I mention this all the time. If you're on LinkedIn, you need to link with me or whatever. I love it there. I saw something on LinkedIn recently that was like an Otter, like a Fathom, but it will answer questions in real time. So you can address the AI assistant, and it'll give you the answers based on all the information that's gained from the meeting it's in at the moment and previous meetings that you've had with it.
Hmm.
And that's like a game changer.
That's
I
wild.
don't remember what it was, but I need to go find it because if I can have that thing in all my meetings and never have to recall anything off the top of my head again, then I would be golden. Golden.
I love that. One of the final things that I wanted to mention that I feel like if you guys are listening to this and you're like, how can I help a planner? What's a tangible way? So we did
Hmm.
image delivery schedules for both our clients and the vendors. So we would send it out mostly to the planner. But our clients would know exactly when they were seeing sneak peeks, the exact date, when they were seeing the full gallery and when everything else would be available to them. So we would send that out to the
Right.
planner as well, the day after the wedding or even a couple days before. And we would say hey, we just want you to know when you're going to see images. Thanks so much for having a great day with us on wedding day or whatever. And if you
Hmm.
want a tangible way to make a planner's life easier, that right there is one of those ways that you could do it.
Yes. And under promise, over deliver. If you are thinking, all right, I can get these images out in 2 weeks, do yourself a favor and say 3 weeks. Say 2.5 if you want, because when they show up early, everybody is going to be thrilled. Thrilled. If you think that, if you're saying as a stationery designer, you're delivering day of paper, you're going to do 200 programs, and you say, oh, well, the printing company had a few extras or whatever. Here's 210. It's like, thank you so much. That's so thoughtful. Those are the little things that go really far. And it's much better to deliver early or even on time if you do end up running behind than deliver late and have everybody looking for you and your inbox blowing up every day because you are 30 minutes beyond the deadline. Like you said, you'd give me these photos by the 31st. It's the first at 1 a.m. Where are they? You know what I mean? Nobody wants those emails. So always under promise and over deliver every chance you get.
That's so funny. I'm going to go on the opposite side of that and say, do what you say you're going to do. If you say you're
Yes.
going to, yeah, because so this is actually why we did image delivery schedules was because I would not rush to get it done, but I wanted to get it done in a timely manner. but I didn't
Mhm.
want to deliver the same day that I got it done because, like, let's just say it only took me a week
That
to do
too.
your wedding.
Mhm.
I don't want to have to, like, deliver a week after your wedding day. So instead, I'm gonna deliver on the day that I said I was going to deliver. So either under promise and over deliver or do what you say you're gonna do.
Yeah, and also when you're under promising, you can also build in time there that allows you a chance to review, to take a second look, to take time away from it and then come back with fresh eyes and make sure that it's what you are comfortable delivering. I think that any situation where you're like under the wire, like, let me hurry up and send this is not a good one for you.
Yeah.
And we don't have to do that to ourselves. Like, if you own your own business, you don't have to set yourself up to be in scramble situations like that. So don't.
Yeah. Surprise, surprise, your business, your rules. Like, it's
Yeah.
on you. You're the boss.
Yeah. And sometimes I think people need reminding of that because, especially if you came from the corporate world and you had a whole lot of bosses on top of you, sometimes it can be easy to forget, like, oh, wait, I don't have to like adhere to arbitrary deadlines. I'm setting the deadline. As long as I'm clear with my client or my partners what my timelines look like, then I'm good. And so you really are the boss. Don't forget, you're the boss.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to the next question because this one
Mhm.
I was like really excited that somebody submitted this question. And this kind of
Mhm.
goes back to why we're doing this anonymously because some of the questions that we got are the kind of questions that it might be hard for you to ask a planner in person, or it might be hard for you
Yeah.
to ask it in a public forum. But here, like, we get to ask the planner whatever we want to ask, but it's also
Yeah.
anonymous. So it gets to be like a true answer from you. So our
Mhm.
next question is, what are things from photographers that are just no's for you? Like you just are like, absolutely not, no thank you.
So I'm gonna start with like some soft no's, because these aren't things that would cause me to totally shut the whole thing down. But I would pause before like taking the client through the process with you. And this is the first one is very spicy. I'm not a fan of HoneyBook at all. HoneyBook is so hard to use as a planner on behalf of a client, because first of all, every time you want to look at something, you have to get a link to sign in. Hate that. Second of all, sometimes when you're dealing with a vendor on behalf of the client, you're communicating information that is not client ready yet, but you can't do that in HoneyBook. Everything you send in HoneyBook is visible to everybody. So if you're sending me a quote and I want to tell you, hey, this quote looks okay, but if you cut a little bit off of it, maybe we remove some items from what you're offering in the service, it'll come in where the client wants it to, and they won't be disappointed because they weren't expecting these extras in the first place, and they're more likely to sign this agreement. I want to say that to you, but I don't want to say that to you with the client on the email. And so if I'm in HoneyBook, I may not say that to you at all because it's a lot of extra work for me to go around you and have a thread separate from the thread. Anyway, it's just a lot of work. It's kind of clunky. I'm not a fan. And so I can't tell you how much dread I feel when I see a HoneyBook link come through because I just know that it's going to be hard for me to manage the process, harder than it would be with somebody who just uses different tools. That's the big one. Also, like being a diva on site, I'm very fortunate to not have worked with very many divas at all, but I've definitely worked with some photographers in particular who have been really difficult, who were unprepared but tried to turn it on me as if I was supposed to be the one preparing for them. Like if we're working on something together and you're trying to get to like some very exclusive location to shoot photos near the wedding venue, it's not on me to get the permit for the photos. That's on the photographer. So if you're coming to me and saying, hey, we were going to shoot photos like on the front steps of the White House, but we can't get past the fence. So what happened? I don't know what happened. If you wanted to shoot on the front steps of the White House, you should have been the one working that out, especially if you didn't tell me until right now. So assuming that the planner is on top of things that are not in the planner's wheelhouse and that you never mentioned to the planner is not great. That's a hard no for me. When that has happened to me in the past, I have never forgotten it and I'll never work with those photographers again, whether it was my project or a project I was assisting someone else on, whether it was a wedding, it was corporate, whatever. Uh, you got to scout the locations. You got to be ready to get to the location. I'm not going to be the one to tell you, hey, the light is great over here at 6 o'clock. That's you. That's what the client paid you for, not me. That's big. And then also like making assumptions of other vendors that push the timeline back and make it difficult to perform. A big one is loose floral for flat leaves. You cannot assume that the floral designer has brought loose floral for you to use for flat leaves. Some floral designers will flat out say no to you, and maybe be a little bit miffed about that, which is not great for the team vibe. Some floral designers will go out of their way and bend over backwards to make it happen for you, which maybe is not in the best interest of the project as a whole. You can't assume that you're going to have any of that. And so most planners will ask the floral designer in advance to have those things prepared. Same goes for catering. A lot of times catering will say, can we have some loose floral to put on the passing trays? Of course you can, because I already asked for loose floral. But if you're working with a planner for the first time, you can't assume that that's part of their process. You need to ask them about that in advance. That's not a hard no for me either, but that's something that I feel comes up very often. Also, if you want extra time to shoot something, if you want to do room shots for 30 minutes, if you want to do portraits for 2 hours, whatever it is, you got to be very clear about that. And that's part of why I want to talk to the photographer early about their timeline so that I can build my timeline off of theirs. Sometimes photographers get confused with me, and sometimes probably a little bit annoyed with me when I say, hey, what's your timeline look like? Because I'm going to start with yours. But really, I'm trying to make sure that the client gets what they need photography wise, because I can build around your timeline. But if your timeline comes in and it's 30 minutes off here, 30 minutes off there from what I thought would work, I got to go back to like 3 or 4 people and readjust the timelines for them. So if you want 4 hours ahead of the wedding ceremony to shoot photos of the couple and the family, I got to push hair and makeup back to start at like 4 in the morning. Not 4 in the morning, you know what I mean? So I want to know what your thought process is like, what you're expecting out of your timeline for the day, so I can work with your timeline for the day. So if you don't communicate that to me until after the full timeline comes out, or you don't communicate that to me at all and just want to do it on the fly, that makes everything difficult for everybody. That's a no for me. Those are the big ones for me. But then like the little ones that are more subtle are like, be a nice person. Remember that we're all on the same team. I'm not trying to make your life difficult. The other vendors are not trying to make your life difficult either. If something happens, we can always talk about it. I'm always going to try to get us all to the point where everybody's having a good day at work, and help people when you can, because we are a team. I know photographers are often the ones that end up having to take care of like the planner tasks when there's not a planner or the planner falls short. And I never want the photographer to like join the planning team or become the planner. However, if you see that we're like scrambling to pull a ceremony out of the rain and you can pick up a chair and help, that's great. We love that. Being a bystander, like, and the team needs all hands on deck is a bad look. You don't have to try and save everybody, but it is really nice to work with photographers in particular who are willing to be hands-on and collaborative, because photographers have such a huge role in how the wedding day unfolds.
Yeah, I love kind of taking it back to the team aspect and the
Mm-hmm.
co-creative. We're all on the same team aspect, because when I look at Facebook threads, I look at normal threads, I look at conversations
Mm-hmm.
happening in the wedding industry, I do see this vibe sometimes come up of like it's the photographer and the client on one side of the team,
Mm-hmm.
and then like you have the opposite team is like all the other vendors. And I think that that is
Yeah.
like it's not a good look, but also
No.
it's not collaborative. And if you want to
Mm-mm.
have referrals from planners, if you want to work with planners, if you want to
Mm-hmm.
work with incredible teams, you have to be a good team member. So like
Mm-hmm.
figuring out what that means to you.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I've noticed, especially as I've been doing more lurking on Reddit, 'cause I know that's like a hot thing right now in the wedding industry. Everybody's looking at big budget brides. I'm noticing that a lot of recommendations for planners that are popping up in those Reddit threads are coming from people who are not necessarily just clients. They're coming from photographers, they're coming from floral designers, they're coming from filmmakers. And so as a planner, you want to make sure that you're making a good impression on people, but it goes in every direction. Somebody says, I'm looking for a great photographer, a floral designer might pop up and say, oh, I worked with so and so and they did a great job. They were so chill on site. They took extra pictures of us during setup. Like, that kind of stuff goes a long way. And again, nobody's asking you to bend over backwards and do 14 jobs at the same time. That's not reasonable. And it's not really worth your time because you're trying to perform a very important job as it is. But it does help to like do a little bit here and there because people remember that. And we all have the same goal at the end of the day.
Do you have any no's that like for photographers? Like, do you have any no's before you're in the hiring process? Like before you're in the stage of either like your client is inquiring with them or consulting with them, where you're just kind of seeing them out in the public space? Are there any no's for you?
Being hard to get a hold of is a huge no. I want to send one inquiry. So if I go to your website and you have a form, you have an email address, whatever it is I need to do to get in touch with you, I'm going to do it, but I'm only going to do it one time. So if I inquire with you and I don't hear from you for like a week, we're probably not going to work together. We may never work together at all because in the inquiry process, I think all of us are on our best behavior when it comes to clients. And so it may usually take us like 2 weeks to reply to emails from everybody else. But from clients, oh, I'm on that. I'm emailing her back today. I'm emailing him back yesterday. But when it comes to other people in the industry, especially planners inquiring on behalf of clients, sometimes the response time is not great. And there have definitely been times where I've reached out to vendors, photographers, I didn't hear from them at all. And so I'm not going to chase you. I'm not going to be in your DM. I'm not going to be commenting like, hey, did you see my inquiry? Like, I'm not doing that because there are so many talented photographers. And if I feel like you're the right one, I feel like you're somebody I want to work with. I feel like your personality is a good match for the client. I want you. And so I'm coming to you. But if I can't get a hold of you, then I can spend my time researching to find somebody else. I can ask another planner friend and find somebody else, and I will. Because getting in touch with you ahead of hiring you is hard. It's only going to become harder over time. Also, if you have an assistant that doesn't actually assist and makes things more difficult, that's not a good look either. You're sending me to your assistant, and your assistant is like not responding to my emails, sending me links that don't work, sending me pricing that's outdated. That's not good. So keep an eye on what your assistant is doing as well. I know a lot of people have virtual assistants, and a good virtual assistant can change your life for the positive, but a lackluster VA can make your life much more difficult and be a poor reflection of you. And so really all of this is just coming down to communication, right? Beyond like being a decent person, not being a bigot, not refusing to shoot LGBTQ couples, working on plantations, like beyond all that stuff, I just want to be able to communicate with you like a human. And if we can't do that, then it's no go.
Yeah, like this is such a big thing for me and my clients, like for my coaching clients, is communication. I literally was just talking to a client. She has multiple proposals out with planners, and she was like, at what time should I like send a message out to these planners to kind of poke them? And I was like, well, tell me each individual situation and let's craft responses because it's going to depend on what has happened so far. And so we like crafted that, and now she's like got like a game plan of this person gets this email, this person I'm going to wait, this person I'm going to extend the proposal. And it's like we want so badly to like have like these weddings with incredible planners, but we have to show up like as the other vendors in a way that makes it easy for us to get hired again and
Yeah.
again and again. And that comes from really good communication. So I love that that's
Yeah.
like such a theme throughout today's like whole conversation.
For sure. And I think that when you're talking about working with high-end planners, high-end clients, it really is high touch. And so whereas in different markets, it might work great for you to have your entire process automated from inquiry to after the wedding. For some vendors that work, they like don't touch anything. They just have like a sequence that runs for every client. That doesn't work for high touch clients, for high end clients, especially when the client communication is happening through the planner. When I'm getting automated emails that are like, congrats on your engagement, like that kind of stuff, that is also a bad look to me, unfortunately. But it's just about like knowing who you're talking to, knowing who your clients are, knowing how they like to be communicated with, knowing how they have their team set up, managing things on their behalf, and making adjustments. And another thing that I forgot is on my no list that I have blacklisted people for is if I reach out to you for a client, they're deciding. They have a proposal, whatever it is, and I tell you, hey, it might take a little while, but I'm going to do my best to get back to you either way. But please let me know if you're not able to hold any longer. If you can't do that, just let me know. Because I know that doesn't work for everybody's business, and that's fine. But I know my clients, sometimes it takes them like 2, 3 weeks to get back to me, and that's happened to me before. Like they're thinking about it, they're not sure. What if we do this? Can we do this? It happens all the time. But I'm going to communicate that to you ahead of time. If you don't want to deal with that, just let me know so we could just maybe work on something together another time. But I've had situations where I go through all that, I tell the client or I tell the vendor that, and then I reach out to them 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't hear from you, so I booked somebody else," or I don't hear from them at all. Every time from them, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, the client is so excited, they can't wait to book with you. Let's do it," and they never. I'll never recommend those people again. Never again. Again, I understand that for some people, a lot of people, especially photographers who get mountains and mountains of inquiries at a time, it doesn't make sense for you to hold dates for weeks. It doesn't make sense for you to hold dates at all sometimes. But if you know that's the case, let me know. That's fine. Everybody has their own way of doing business because, again, you are the boss. So if you're not trying to hold a date to work with my client, that's fine. I'm not mad about it. I can bring you somebody who makes quick decisions. I'll keep you in mind for that. If you're just gonna book stuff out from under my client, that makes my life so much harder. The disappointment the client feels is palpable as well. So let's not do that. So just let me know. I don't want to make your life difficult. I'm not trying to be a diva myself by saying these things. I'm just trying to be as honest as possible so that we can be on level ground. So yeah, booking clients, dates out from under them, or just fully disappearing, not good. Don't love it.
Yeah, I one of the things I wrote down because I thought this was like really interesting, like listening to you talk about how like if you get an automated email, that's a no for you. So I worked in like the higher like mid market, like lower luxury like space for quite a
Mm-hmm.
while. And like I was able to have parts of my process automated and parts of it were not automated. Just
Mm-hmm.
because, like, you don't have it automated does not mean that you should not have a process. You should still know what your
Exactly.
workflow is and what your process is,
Exactly.
even if you are not automating the emails. So we had some
Mm-hmm.
emails that would go out that would just be like check-in emails, and of course those were going to be automated. But my
Love
clients
it.
thought that I wrote them. They'd be like, "Oh my god, it's so nice to hear from you." And like, this
And
is
they're like,
automated. Like,
yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, hi. Why is this client in my inbox?" Oh, the check-in email went out to them.
Yeah.
So I would also make sure that like if it was an email that was supposed to be automated, but this client is working with a planner who it's client communication, and I've asked that planner, do you want me to be sending you the questionnaires? I'm just going to take the entire automation off and I'm just going to send them the questionnaires so that they can do that at their leisure. Versus
Mm-hmm.
if it's a client and they want the questionnaires and they want the process, I'm going to let it run. So
Yeah.
it's just like case by case.
Totally case by case. And also some planners might even say to you, like, yeah, do your thing, run your automation, whatever works for you. Just copy me on everything. Definitely copy them. Even if they don't ask for you to copy them, you should still be copying them because they need to know what's going on. And you can never assume that the client is going to loop them in on anything that happens between you. Most of the clients are assuming that you're doing it. So I think, of course, like upfront, find out what works well for the client, the planner, whomever you're communicating with, and then make adjustments because nobody wants to feel like they're like trying to get squeezed into a spot that they don't fit in. Nobody wants to feel like they're part of like a catch-all system, especially when clients are spending thousands and thousands of dollars to work with you. They want to feel like you care about them and what happens to them, and part of that, how you show that, is through your communication.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have one final question for today's
Hmm.
episode, and I really love this one because I know that like you have like so many different places that like this can go. So the final question for today is where do you draw inspiration to design for your clients? Which I think is so cool because you've done so many really neat designs for both corporate and weddings.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think for wedding clients, the the approach that I like to take is to have them pull inspiration from everything but weddings. Also, pulling wedding inspiration has gotten harder because there's so much AI on Pinterest and on Instagram, but that's a different conversation. I like to ask my couple questions, and then I also like to get visuals from them. So I'll ask them, where do you like to shop for clothes? What's the vibe like in your home? What do you do when you have a lot of free time? What's your style as a vacationer? Are you somebody who likes to go to a city and do a lot of activities? Or do you like to go someplace and just sit, feel the breeze, and have a drink? Are you outgoing? Are you shy? Do you want your event to feel romantic, or do you want it to feel lively? Show me some pictures of hotels you stayed in that you really love, or outfit inspo that you have. I just want to get a feel for your personal style. And I think that is really interesting for a lot of my couples and for me, because some of them have never really talked about these things together. And so I make sure to ask them, like, I want to know from both of you the answers to these questions. This is not a bride centric type of operation. I want to know where both of you are in terms of like what your style is like. And then we can talk about ways to merge them together, because some of my couples don't live together. And so they don't have a cohesive interior design style because they've never designed an interior together before. So that's like the key to everything that I do, is like really getting to know people and designing based on who they are rather than what is trendy, what they think they like. Because the challenge with following trends is that if you're picking and choosing everything that's cool on Instagram right now, and you don't feel a personal connection to it, it doesn't feel 100% reflective of you. As you're in the planning process, there's always potential for a new, cooler thing to pop up, and for you to feel like you want to throw everything out the window and start over based on a wedding you saw in Vogue, or an idea that you found on Pinterest, or something that somebody DM'd you on Instagram. And that's tough. For me, it's whatever. Like, we can design the whole thing again and I'm fine with it. But I think that's tough on clients because decision fatigue is so real. I've seen people
Yeah.
cry making decisions back to back to back. It's really hard. It's really, really hard. And you have to be very sure of yourself. You have to be very decisive to even have like a regular experience. Most people are not that, especially when it feels like there's a lot of pressure on them. And so by starting from a place of trying to get to know them so we can pull the design from them and from what they actually like and what resonates with them, that gets us to a place where they feel deeply connected to all of the design decisions we've made because we're basing it on them. So there's that piece. But then there's also like the things that I see out in the world. I love watching fashion shows from Fashion Week. I have some production companies in the fashion world that I follow. And I watch every single one of the shows they produce because they're always so interesting and out of the box. I'm a travel advisor, so I spend a lot of time like learning about different locations, following new hotels that are opening, learning a lot about like types of travel that I haven't really done much of, like cruises, for example. I didn't know really much of anything about river cruising, but now I'm like very interested in going on a river cruise. Just like things that are happening out in the world, pop culture, sports, all of that. There's so much to draw inspiration from, and there are so many ways to kind of reimagine gatherings. And so I find that kind of blending the client's tastes and the client's ideas and design choices with the things that I've seen out in the world that I can kind of throw in to maybe take it to another level is kind of like the magic, the magic bean. Is that the right thing? Magic beans?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
secret sauce? Secret sauce I think is kind of plain. Maybe I'm gonna stick with magic beans.
I'm so curious if like do you share like your mood board and like so like you've asked your clients all these like
Mhm.
questions, like you've gotten the inspiration, like you understand like what the client's like vision is. Do you ever
Mhm.
share that with the other vendors? Like obviously some of
Yeah.
them you have to, like the florist like has to know. But
Yes.
like do you ever share that with your photographers and other vendors?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. So after I've gotten all of my intel from the client, I put together a mood board of maybe like 8 images, and then I send it to the client and I say, "Does this feel right?" I have some buzzwords, I have the images, I have their names. That's it. I send it to the client. I'm like, "Hey, does this feel like the right thing? Does this feel like it's kind of like a snapshot of what we're going for here?" We tweak it until they say yes, and then I use that for everybody. I send that to everybody
Love that.
because for stationery, it's huge. Especially because stationery a lot of times gets the call before anybody else. So I'm sorry I can't show you the floral design deck because we don't have a floral designer yet, but I can show you this mood board. And sometimes I'll send them all the answers to the questions that I ask them. I want them to get a feel for the client without the client having to answer the same questions over and over again. I think a lot of wedding pros are trying to get at the same pieces of information. And so if I already know I have that information, I'm going to give the the creative partner, the vendor, as much as I can. And I think that also kind of helps them create proposals, messages, prepare for phone calls if we're having phone calls in a way that gives them a lot of an advantage. Because ultimately, I love when the client sees the materials or gets off the phone and they talk to me and they're like, oh my God, I love that photographer that you sent us. Their personality is perfect. They're exactly what we were looking for, and we didn't realize it. It really feels like a personality fit. I'm excited to hang out with them at the wedding. That is the best possible feedback because it means that we've done a good job of preparing, and I've helped them identify a person that feels like a match on every level. Because again, there are so many talented people in this industry, and sometimes it's about just finding the person who's talented and also has the right personality to match with the client if they're having like a lot of one-on-one time with the client or just responsible for interpreting a lot of the client's creative vision. That is so key. And so, yeah, I definitely share that board as much as possible, especially before I have like diagrams and renderings and all that stuff to help people get an idea of who they're potentially working with.
I love that. And I think this is like a really great tie-in to something that I talk about a lot. And I also like talk to my clients about this. We probably had a conversation about this. You need to be the same person that you are online in person. Like you need
Hmm.
to be showing who you are so that
Hmm.
when Allison is like putting a deck together of like who exactly she's going to pitch to this client for photographers, she knows
Hmm.
who you are. She not just
Yeah.
like, oh, like peripherally, like I know who that person is, like they're a good photographer. No, she knows your personality. She knows your process. She knows like that you like your style is going to fit the client. If you
Hmm.
are trying to be a mold of the same person, like or like the same set of like people in a friend group or whatever,
Hmm.
it's so hard to pitch that person because it's like,
Yeah.
well, there's 5 of you. Like you're all the same
Right.
basically. I don't care about your
Yeah.
coffee order. I want to know who you are. So
Exactly.
that's like my like little a little stand-in there for a second.
Yeah. Yes. And I fully back that. It can be really hard to differentiate in fields of this industry where there's a lot of talent when you don't really get any glimpse of their style or their tone of voice or what's interesting to them. And so differentiating yourself as much as possible is really scary in an industry where it's kind of like a sea of sameness a lot of the time. And sometimes it can feel like the same people are getting the spotlights and the accolades. It can feel like, well, if that's working, then I need to do that too. But I would argue that if you're in your own lane, after a while, it becomes really difficult to ignore you and overlook you. So continue to be exactly who you are, and the right clients will find you, and the wrong clients will go in the other direction, which is what you want.
Yeah. There was a year that I had almost 200 inquiries. I don't remember the exact number,
Ooh.
but like I cannot be in 200 places at once. But
Nope.
like the reason I bring that up is like you want to make sure that the right people are finding you, but you want to make sure the
Mhm.
right people are actually hiring you. I
Yeah.
could have 200 inquiries and only 10 of them be like my perfect dreamy, we love to co-create couples,
Mhm.
but you can't actually like be hired by 200 people. Like, so if you
Right.
are getting a lot of inquiries, we really do want to like make sure that you are working with the right people. And that's going to come from your side of things and making sure that you're
Yeah.
showcasing who you are.
Mhm. It's a combination too, right? It's like you want to show people who you are and what you're capable of. And you also want to be able to eke out certain qualities that you know work well in potential clients or planners that you're collaborating with. If you're going to spend a lot of time talking to the planner and not necessarily the client, the clarity that you have to really be able to like drill down to what's important is massive.
Absolutely. Goodness, this was so good. I'm so like I love that we're doing this
It's so
series together.
fun.
I love the questions that we already have gotten.
Hmm.
So I just want to like kind of like wrap this up with like a pretty little bow. Is there any like takeaways from today or anything that you want to like key in on from today's conversation that you want to reiterate?
Sure. I think the overarching theme here was communicate, and I'm sure that will be the theme across many other episodes of Ask the Planner. Make sure that you know what you want to say and that you say it. Ask questions as much as you possibly can, and try to make sure that the lines of communication are open between you, the planner, the client, the other vendors, if necessary. Make it easy for people to contact you. Make it easy for um, for them to hold conversation with you. That's what really gets people ahead in this industry.
I totally agree. Well, thank you so much for the very beginning of Ask the Planner series. I'm so excited for this one to go live. If you guys loved today's episode, please come find us on Instagram. You can find me at Aislinn Eileen Coaching, and you can find Allison. Do you want threads? Do you want Instagram?
Yeah,
Where do you want people to
either
find you?
one. At Davis Row in both places. You can DM me. You can. I don't even know like the lingo on threads. You can thread at me. You can tweet at people. You can thread at me. Whatever you feel comfortable with. You can send me an email, Allison@davisrow.com. Whatever works for you. And again, as you've heard, we haven't mentioned anybody's name in these questions. No identifying information, and so it really is a safe space. Um, and there are no names in our planner bank document either. So you
Yeah.
can ask whatever you want.
Yep. So if you guys love today's episode, please let us know. If you want to submit a question, you can either submit it to myself or to Allison, and we will put it in the document. And I cannot wait to have more of these episodes come out. So thank you again for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This was fun. I'm excited for the next one.
I will see you guys on the next episode.